The main actors of the indefinite strike in Panama are making progress at a unified dialogue table in order to establish a common agenda. Meanwhile, police authorities intensify repressive actions against the protesters. After a weekend of commemorative events, such as walks and caravans, Nicaraguans celebrate the end of the Somoza dictatorship. In the final statement of the Trilateral summit held in Tehran, the presidents of Iran, Russia and Turkey condemned the continued Israeli attacks against Syria and considered them a violation of international law. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. The main actors of the indefinite strike in Panama are making progress at a unified dialogue table in order to establish a common agenda. Meanwhile, police authorities intensify their repressive actions against the protests. The National Association for the Rights of the Organized People, ANADEPO, the Alliance Pueblo Unido por la Vida, and the indigenous organizations in Panama met under the sponsorship of the Catholic Church, represented by Monsignor José Domingo Ulloa, with the purpose of consolidating an agenda for a possible dialogue with the government. Ulloa stressed that the dialogue has two phases. The first with the main actors of the protests, and the second phase will include all the unions of the country. For his part, union leader Saúl Méndez pointed out that they must go with broad and open mind with the purpose of reaching agreements that will allow us to overcome the complex situations of the country. On the other hand, repression by police units and demonstrators in Santiago de Veraguas continues to be reported. According to local media, the clashes take place with the purpose of opening two closure points at the elevated bridge of Santiago and San Antonio, Entrada Atalaya. Nicaraguans celebrate Tuesday the 43rd anniversary of the triumph of the Sandinista Revolution that put an end to the Anastasio Somoza dictatorship after a weekend of commemorative events such as walks and caravans. 277 special guests from different countries gathered at Managüa's July 16th Central Park Tuesday in the evening for the official closing of the national festivities. Vice President Rosario Murillo thanked all the participants for their support to the Sandinista Revolution and highlighted the struggle spirit of the Nicaraguan people and the full support to the Sandinista Revolution.
Nobody surrenders here. Here we neither sell out nor surrender. Here do not sell out. Here we are motherland free. Strength, so much strength, infinite strength of victories, of lasting joys, of love, growing love, of a dignified, proud, patriotic, revolutionary, evolutionary, Sandinist heart, a soul that forges futures. We have the certainty that our formidable history leaves us. We have the certainty that leaves us all that we have lived, all that we have starred in and are staring, because we believe in a free country or die.
During her speech, Rosario Murillo had words for the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, who was present among the guests, and who will be decorated with the Order Augusto Cesar Sandino in its highest degree.
We have the honor to hold with us our fellowship Ralph Gonsalves, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a Caribbean hero, a consistent, solidarist and faithful man, loyal to his principles and to the fights of our people, to our principles, because tonight we will have the honor of presenting to Ralph the Order Augusto Cesar Sandino in its highest grade.
Venezuela's government confirmed it has found evidence of the attack against the gas system in the eastern part of the country. The regional vice president for the economy, Tarek El-Aizami, pointed out that structures used by the perpetrators of the attack were found, showing that it was deliberately planned with the purpose of negatively affecting the country's economy. In addition, El-Aizami emphasized that despite the seriousness of the damages, it was possible to re-establish the normal condition of the gas pipeline, and also stated that the investigations will continue until they find the perpetrators. We move on to other topics. Relatives of the inmates at the Bellavista prison in the Ecuadorian city of Santo Domingo de los Colorados wait outside the morgue for the victims' bodies of a recent prison riot. The incident took place at the same prison where 44 inmates were killed in a bloody brawl in May. Local authorities said prison officials, aided by the military and the police, were able to regain control of the facility. Interior Minister Patricio Carrillo later told a press conference that current information indicated that most of the victims were Venezuelans. Vicious prison riots are common in Ecuador, where drug gangs are vying for control of trafficking routes. Nestled between the world's biggest cocaine producers, Colombia and Peru, Ecuador has seen a surge of violence blamed on fighting between rival drug groups. The United Nations Human Rights Office expressed concern about the rising violence around Haiti's capital, saying 99 people have been killed in recent fighting between rival gangs in the Cid Solel district alone. The warning came hours after the UN Security Council unanimously approved a resolution renewing the mandate of a UN office in the troubled Caribbean nation and called on all the countries to stop the transfer of small arms, light weapons and ammunition to anyone there supporting the gun violence and the criminal activity. According to data reported by the UN Humanitarian Affairs Coordination Office in Haiti, documented from January to the end of June, more than 900 killings, nearly 700 injuries and the same number of kidnappings across the capital. UN spokespersons urged the authorities in Haiti to ensure fundamental rights are protected and placed at the front and center of the responses to the crisis. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. Record-breaking temperatures in the United Kingdom are expected in days to come as a result of a heat wave currently engulfing Europe. A fierce heat wave left Western Europe sweltering on Tuesday, fueling ferocious wildfires and stretching emergency services as it swept north and pushed temperatures in Britain over 40 degrees Celsius for the first time. After the UK's warmest night on record, the Met Office said 40.2 degrees Celsius had been provisionally recorded by lunchtime at Heathrow Airport in West London, taking the country into uncharted territory. Britain's previous all-time temperature record of 38.7 degrees Celsius has been registered in Cambridge, in eastern England, in 2019. Experts blame climate change for the latest heat wave and note the more frequent extreme weather will only worsen in years to come. The high temperatures have triggered an unprecedented red alert for the extreme heat in much of England, where some rail lines were closed as a precaution and schools shuttered in some areas.
We are supposed to break records during the coming days, and also today we have actually already broken the all-time high in UK. There was 39.1 degrees at 11 o'clock.
We have been alerting for a long time that climate change is affecting very much human health, and therefore taking measures to reach the zero carbon and accelerating the transition to clean renewable sources of energy, stopping this whenever possible and as quick as possible, the acceleration to renewable sources of energy, non-polluting sources of energy will be extremely important.
The United Kingdom surpassed 40 degrees Celsius for the first time on Tuesday in what is so far the hottest day ever recorded, according to provisional data from the British Meteorological Office, Met. The hottest day ever recorded in the UK is being felt in places like Wellington, near London. A large fire captured by the British channel Sky News damaged several houses in this small town on Tuesday, forcing firefighters to send up to 15 trucks and hundreds of personnel to the scene. At least one house was reportedly totally destroyed. In Greece, hundreds of residents were evacuated from their homes as a wildfire threatened mountainside suburbs northeast of Athens. Firefighters battled through the night, struggling to contain the blaze intensified by the strong gusts of wind. Officials said 15 planes and 9 helicopters were involved in the firefighting effort on the slopes of Mount Penteli, 25 kilometers northeast of Athens. Police officers and firefighters carried elderly residents out of their homes to safety as the flames approached. Local officials said homes had been burned or damaged, but there were no reports of injuries. Greece has been spared by the heat wave conditions currently plaguing countries in Western Europe, but longer-term temperature rises have increased in the overall risk of forest fires. And now we move on to other topics. The European Commission on Tuesday proposed to unblock the funds frozen by sanctions on Russian banks to help resume the trade in agricultural and food products. The request was sent to the representatives of the 27 states of the European Union in Brussels, and if accepted, a written procedure will be submitted to be validated on Wednesday, and applied from Thursday. This derogation concerns 7 Russian banks, among them the bank Rosia and Novirum Bank. For its part, Africa, which imported more than half of its wheat from Russia or Ukraine before the conflict, is pressurizing European countries from considering that European sanctions are having an impact on the grain trade. The European Union's Statistical Office, Eurostat, indicated that the continent's annual inflation reached a record 8.6% in the month of June. The agency specified that the figure exceeds the 8.1% registered in May, while in the same month of last year it had been 1.9%. The European Bureau pointed out that the highest inflationary increase was attributed to energy, for having figures higher than 42% in the last 12 months. The highest rates were registered by Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia, while Spain increased by 10.2%. He also noted that the largest economies had below average inflation rates of 6.5% and 8.2%, these indicators belonging to France and Germany. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In the final statement of the Trilateral Summit held in Tehran, the presidents of Iran, Russia and Turkey condemned the continued Israeli attacks against Syria and considered them a violation of international law. Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi, the Russian President Vladimir Putin, and the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan held a trilateral summit on Tuesday in Tehran, where they discussed ways to resolve the crisis in Syria, their rejection of terrorism, and analyzed the ways to accelerate the return of the Syrian refugees to their country. The 3 countries denounced the increasing activities of terrorist groups and their affiliates under different names in different regions of Syria. The text further expressed rejection of the unilateral sanctions imposed on Damascus, which contradict international law and the human rights. It called on the world community to provide adequate humanitarian aid to Syrian refugees for their return to their lands. Russia's President Vladimir Putin held a bilateral meeting with his Iranian counterpart, Ebrahim Raisi, ahead of a 3-day wait summit on Syria. Raisi and Putin discussed means of developing relations in various fields, including energy, transit, and trade exchange, as well as regional development. Putin urged strengthening cooperation in the field of international security and said that a significant contribution is made to the solution of the Syrian crisis. For his part, Raisi wished Putin's visit to Iran to be a turning point in the development of relations between the two countries, as well as regional and international cooperation, adding that after the meetings in Moscow and Ashgabat, the process of cooperation between the two countries is growing. The Russian President Vladimir Putin thanked Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan for mediating talks of the export of grain from Ukraine, saying there was some progress. In this regard, Putin thanked Erdogan for his efforts to mediate in order to provide a Turkish platform for negotiations on food issues and to arrange the departure of ships with grain from ports across the Black Sea. For his part, the Turkish president commented to Putin on the positive and constructive position taken by the delegation of the Eurasian nation in the negotiations of the export of Ukrainian grain. At Tuesday's meeting, Putin and Erdogan also discussed ways for the settlement of the situation in Syria, the issue of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, and the bilateral agenda on the sidelines of the Astana summit in Tehran.
I want to thank you for your mediation efforts and for providing a platform for negotiations on food problems and grain export. With your mediation, we have moved forward. Not all issues have yet been resolved, but the fact that there is movement is already good.
During the bilateral meeting with Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi, Turkey President Recep Tayyip Erdogan noted that he hopes to resume the Astana peace process to address the situation in Syria.
Of course, this would be the re-evaluation of the Astana process, a revival of the Astana process.
A recent launch of 2 networks for women in South Sudan's security sector provide a platform for uniformed female personnel in both the police and the military to advocate for gender-responsive security institutions. Following South Sudan's September 2018 signing of the revitalized agreement on the resolution of the conflict, the provision of a 35% affirmative action quota was a great win for women in various sectors countrywide. For those in the security sector, that is, the organized forces, reform within the sector was flagged as a priority. Reform can allow for unity amongst fighting forces, and this can in turn help reduce the likelihood of renewed war. Speaking at the launch of the networks where the organized forces had group discussions and debates and participants received awareness on the training in human rights sensitization, a top human rights official in the country encouraged the participants and stressed that their participation in the sector is crucial. And TeleSUR English continues to grow. Its signal now reaches Europe. You can order it from your cable dealer or tune it yourself. These parameters that you see on screen are in place since July 1st. Quite some further changes will be implemented for the signals in the Middle East and Africa. Now, more than ever, the world connects to us and our stories are heard in other farther away nations. This news multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and our faithfulness to our audience. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, as always, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.